Hey YouTubers, I'm back and doing the final stretch stuff on the bike until I have final pictures of it. Currently I have to work on the tank, get the dents worked out of that thing, get it primed or filled, primed, and painted. I'm also doing some final stuff on the valve covers, actually finally addressing those, getting them cleaned up and painted. Other than that, I have to replace the bottom and top shock bolts on the rear. And then from there, it's add the fluids and tweak the carburation to get it set up properly for the new exhaust and the lack of massive restrictive air box with those new air pods. But in the meantime, I ran out with a friend and picked something up. Let me show you what we got. No, it's not one of those three bikes, but right next to this one is where that one, the current project's at. My bike always sits over there. But so we ran out, and a friend of mine says, hey, I want to do a build too. So there sits a CX500 Deluxe. The ones I build are a custom, and you can see the difference in the tank. This one here is kind of a big, bulky, different shape. It has a totally different style gas cap. There's a custom. The top of the gas cap has a locking strap that goes over it, and the cap sits under it. This one here is the whole cap that just clamps down on top of the tank. Totally different style in the tank. So this one here, he wants to do a cafe build on it. He's not a builder, he's just a friend of mine, and I told him I'd help him out and see if we can get this thing done. But that might be a little ways down the road because I got a vehicle project a guy's bringing over I'm going to do. As far as the tank work, got some of the dents worked out, or I should say filled in. Got those little tiny ones here and here. There was a little one back here, a pretty good sized one here, and a major one there. But while I was working with it and messing with it, I come across something. You see that light at the bottom left? Watch that light. Yep, there's another dent. I gotta find all these little things and get it worked out. I'll stop it here and I'll show you some pictures of the valve cover. Well, dang, I forgot to take pictures of the valve covers while I had them off. So on one of the bikes I have sitting here, this is what they look like. You can kind of see the aging where the clear coat starts coming off and looking terrible. This is on that Real Clean Deluxe model I have sitting here for a friend. The ones that were on that custom looked more like that. So what I do is I take them to the wire wheel and I clean all the clear coat off. And this is on my bike. You'll see the round spark plug cover on the 500 is different than the 650. So I get them to a raw aluminum look. And then what I did from there, I'm not going to show the whole bike, just the valve cover, is that I went with a nice fire engine red to tie in that rear shock and just throw a little color pop at it. Alright, well, I gotta get going on that tank. Okay, so what I did on the tank is I used a primer that's also kind of a filler for scratches, and it's a gray. And then what you do is you put something called a guide coat over it. It's just a flat black. You can use pretty much anything. Black shows up the best. And then you start your block sanding. And what the guide coat does is when you're sanding, the black will stay in all the low spots. So I did a little bit of sanding so you can see the black down in the scuffs and scratches. Well, if you've got an area where you've done body work, I don't see any spots. I ended up feathering it out really good. If I find a spot, I'll show you. If you've got an area where you have body work and the original metal coming together and you don't sand it well, you'll end up getting a little spot, like let's say you use some body filler here, and it's a little bit low between the original metal and the body filler. It'll show up by the use of a guide coat. I'm going to keep going on this thing, get it sanded out, and hopefully get it painted tonight. You may have noticed my I do a wet sand with a block. My water's sitting on the stove. Well, why is it on the stove? Well, it's a whopping 27 degrees. And I don't have white grass. That's right, it snowed. Gave us about 2 inches today, or last night, and it's compacted down through the day to about 1 inch. So it's a little cold out. Hence the reason my water's on the stove, and it started out as hot water, and I am as close as I can get to that stove out here in the shop. Now, when sanding something and blocking it out, it's real difficult because like a curve this way, a curve this way, you just kind of want to do, you don't want to sit in one spot and do it. You got to really make sure you get everything worked out. I'm sure there'd be a better utensil for holding the sandpaper, but the cross hatching will allow you to follow that curve and that angle as best you can in working it out. So I'm started with a 240 grit, and the purpose for wet sand is so that it doesn't gum up your paper, amongst other things, but that's really the main part. I see my water steaming. I might have to remove that here in a bit. And once I get it all sanded down with the block, I will remove the block, and I'll use a scuff pad over my sand, or I should say my sandpaper over a scuff pad. With the scuff pad, I'll grab them. That is a scuff pad. It's kind of like Scotch-Brite, but it's specific to bottle body. It comes about a rectangle about that big. I cut them in half. So what I'll do is I'll take my sandpaper and put it over this. That way if I have any ridges from this thing sanding, I kind of knock those down a little bit more. But the first thing I try to do is get all the low spots out. I don't know if you can see that or not, but I still got some of the low spots from where I had to do the repair of the fillers in there. Of course, if you hit any spots where you've gone through the primer, that's where you have to stop. Once you get it all sanded down, you don't want to sand past your primer. So you kind of be watching it pretty good. And then you got to reprime again. Like I said, this primer is a filling sand, so it's a little bit thicker, not just a shoot it on and paint over it. Sanding a round device or item with something flat ain't the easiest. That's what I'll be doing for a little while. And some finishing stuff on the tank. Gonna put it on the bike today. Thought I'd go outside and get some decent pictures, but Mother Nature decided to change that. Yeah, it's like 6 to 7 inches of snow out here. There's my beautiful Dodge. Can't even see it hardly. So I might push it out, about here somewhere, get some pictures in the snow. Might look cool. My trees down the driveway like killer. Now, back to the work. Well, there it is. The snow from the photo shoot a few moments ago hasn't even melted off, or I should say dried off. The snow is melted. The exhaust wrap was smoking a bit, burning in. I don't know if you can see that still. Had to open the door, it was getting smoky in here. All done.